All right, guys, so we are going to talk about content. We're going to talk about top quality content, examples of a lot of pages that have done a really good job, top quality video content, top quality photo content, and ultimately how we want to then execute this content. There's a social media section. Either you've already watched it or you're going to watch it. That's going to talk about, how we actually post it and put it out there. But in terms of the execution of the actual content, definitely more important than how we put it out there. We want to have really good stuff. So let's start with, let me move my face. All right, so let's start with this. Now, again, every style is going to be different. The key is going to be consistency, right? And so the first thing we want to talk about is, let's talk about video content. Right now, when we look at this, right, it looks pretty simple and straightforward. That's because it is, right? Now, well, you're going to see that they get a lot of views and a lot of likes and comments. And Spencer, what the heck? It's just a poster with words. Why is this doing so well? What did they do? How much did they pay in ads? And what's going on, right? Why does it do so well? Well, a couple reasons. So, number one, you see the views on these videos. That's not an accident, right? That's not one fluke. It's a lot. Now, you'll see that in each of these, a lot of comments. What does that mean? They are invoking emotion, okay? Number one. We need our content to invoke emotion and speak to our brand, because when we're doing that, when we're true to ourselves as the brand, our audience is going to not only listen, but they're going to engage, right? Think about a politician when they talk about, whatever the issue is. I'm not going to get into politics, obviously, but when they talk about, abortion or immigration or taxes, right? People are passionate about that and they're going to engage, right? That same fire we want to have in terms of a brand. Of course, we want to do it in a positive manner. A lot of that is negative, but we want to focus on, hey, how can we inspire people? How can we get people excited, right? And so focusing on invoking emotion is the number one most important thing. And so how these guys have done it is, well, let's put stuff about Jesus and God on posters and let's just show people the words, right? Let's say out loud what they're thinking. And they've done a masterful job at that, right? Now, let's use another example, okay? Still talking about video content. Now, this is another brand, right? A lot different, but, and this is kind of a funny video, right? Well, because, it's an inspiring message, but it's a little bit humorous, right? And so you can see here that they are posting words that invoke emotion, right? People are getting excited. Maybe not as much as We the Believers is, but they're still doing that where people are feeling a sense of, okay, what is this brand? What's going on here? Let's use this example. This is actually going to be for the photo example, so I'm going to save this. Now, another video example, right? Unfinished Legacy. So what are they doing, right? They're posting high quality videos that are speaking to the brand, right? And if we want to listen to music on, right, this is going to, I'm not going to play this all day, but essentially they are speaking to the brand. They're showing you the behind the scenes of what they're doing, right? Totally a 180 from We the Believers, not even close, but they both work, right? And so your objective and your goal is to be, okay, what kind of content am I going to put out there that's going to invoke emotion and that's going to get people excited about the brand, right? What is the vibe? What is the sort of the aesthetic that I'm going for, right? And that is something that's super important. And, when we're looking at professional content, professional videos like these, right, that's what we want to focus on. Now, a lot of these are unconventional. A lot of these are very different than what you might be used to. And we can look at a Nike and an Adidas too as well. Something like this for Blasters Club, very different. It's just showing the bags. Again, a totally different vibe from We the Believers and Unfinished Legacy, but it works and it makes sense, right? And so this is really kind of, okay, what's going on here? This is very focused on the products. The other thing is really focused on the messaging, right? So it's not one and the same. It's not mutually exclusive, but it just shows that, hey, as long as you're able to grab people's attention in that first couple of seconds and hook them, you're good. You've got them, right? Your views are going to go up, your engagement's going to go up, and ultimately your brand loyalty is going to increase. What happens when that occurs? Sales go up, which is what we're looking for, right? And so that is really something that, we want to make sure that we have. Now, let's talk about the sort of, let's talk about the Nikes of the world. I want to just pull that up and I just want to take a look, right? So we'll think, well, Nike's so big and everyone knows them, and why is this important? Well, let's look at what they're actually doing, right? So they're showing this Nike Air innovation, and it's very professional, it's very cool, Biles and all these athletes, and oh, this is sick, right? This is kind of cool. You're going to watch this video because it looks awesome. Now, I'm not saying you need a $100,000 budget to put a Nike commercial together, but you see what they're doing, right? And you see what they're putting together. And so if we can do something that is even a third or a fifth as good as Nike, we're golden, right? We don't need to be Nike. We just need to be the best version of ourselves when it comes to putting out content. But this content inspires people, right? When you see someone doing these activities, when you see someone, sprinter, when you see, Caitlin Clark, when you see this, you have a feeling towards it, whether you hate it or you love it, you're going to pay attention, right? That's what we want to do. And so again, I'm not saying we need to be Nike, but we need to invoke emotion and get people excited about what we're putting out there. Now, let's go to an example of another brand that does a really good job with photo content. Let's talk about that, right? And we can see here the photos are very professional. They're very to the point. You understand it. It looks cool. It's sexy. It's fun. It's different. It's not what you're used to. There's the aesthetic, right? That's consistent across the board. And it looks really cool. It's a little edgy. And it makes sense, right? And this is not a tremendous brand yet. They do very well, but this is not Nike level brand, right? But they're putting content out that's going to get them, again, I'm not saying to Nike, but they're going to get to a point where that audience is really locked in because they've done such a great job promoting the brand and pushing it, right? They have sick garments that are very cool and very unique. And so they're putting that out there in a way that's very professional. Would you click on this? Would you like it? Yeah, you probably would. Would you go to their store and at least look? Yeah, you probably would. If I'm throwing a shirt on the floor, I'm probably not going to look. It's not that exciting. It's not that entertaining. So you either need to entertain, invoke emotion, or do both, right? And so if you're not doing either of those things, people aren't going to engage with your content. And so when it comes to professional videos and professional photos, I always recommend putting that out there. Let's look at our photographer, right, who does a lot of PSM work, and so he does his own work as well. But let's look at, this is all very professional. It's all very different, right? These are all different brands, but you see what he's going for. You see the professionalism that's there, and it works, and it makes sense, and it gets you excited. Imagine if I said, hey, your brand, let's say you're a basketball brand, you're going to have a photo like this. And this, and this. You'd be stoked. Yeah, hell yeah. I definitely want those photos because why? It speaks to my brand. It invokes emotion. If that emotion is, oh, wow, that's so cool, or oh, wow, I'm so inspired, right? That is the backing that our content needs to have in order to stand out and stand apart from everybody else and their grandmother who has a clothing brand, right? And so if you're looking for resources in terms of making professional videos, taking professional photos, doing things like that, we have resources available. Again, just contact us. Just say, hey, I'm looking to have a professional photo shoot. We have a media page on our site that you can go to as well. Fill that out, and we can see if you're eligible for something like a photo or video shoot. Another cool example is, the content in the background and the mock-ups just rolling. So it's a little overstimulating, but not to the point where I'm going to click off, to the point where I'm going to okay, I have to see more. I have to click, right? Shop now, go now, right? The goal of our content, of our ads, of whatever we're putting out there is to get people to stop scrolling and click on what we're doing, right? Click and say, hey, I'm interested. I need to learn more, right? And again, not every video is going to go viral. That's okay. What we need to focus on is similar to what We the Believers has really mastered, getting consistent content that always invokes emotion and starts a conversation. That's it. It's complicated and it's advanced, but it's also very simple, right? What does your brand stand for, right? We talked about that in the About Us section if you were there already. If not, you'll get there. What is the brand image? Okay, how do we push this message? How do we reflect that to the audience? And focusing on this top quality professional content is going to be very important. Now, let's say, Spencer, I don't have a professional camera. I don't have the resources for a professional photo shoot. Not a problem, right? That's okay. Here's what we can do. We can do user-generated content. And Keepers is a perfect example of user-generated content, right? These are people on their boats with fish. Simple, easy. And people send him pictures. I asked him the other day, I said, how often do you do photo shoots? And he laughed. He said he hasn't done one in a year and a half. And I said, well, how do you get so much content? He said, well, people fish and they send me photos. Sounds pretty nice to me. Sounds like a pretty good deal. But is it? Because he's put a lot of work into making sure that people are excited about fishing and excited about posting and sharing and everything. And so now he gets to the point where all he has to do is just post what people send him, right? And so, these pictures, of course, he makes, right? These are very cool, right? Just the Black Friday sale, whatever the case may be. But most of this stuff is user-generated. Now, how do we get user-generated content? We need people to send them in a somewhat professional environment. We don't want bathroom selfies. We don't want, dark alleys, outside on their front porch, or at a bar, or at a festival, or somewhere with the clothing or the product, whatever it might be, and showcasing that to the world in a way that's very exciting, right? You see this guy's Keepers Only on, right? But you're focusing on the fish, right? The brand's in the background. And so that is something that, hey, make sure you have the clothing on, but when he needs to, he can take cool photos like this, right? He can do that. And so what you can do is you can shoot with your friends, shoot with yourself, right? You might need to be your brand face, right? You might need to be, if professional isn't an option for you at the moment. UGC does work, and it can work. I started with Keepers at 0. He's at 15K. Hasn't even spent that much on ads. It's just organic growth. They have spent on ads. Let me not, say that they haven't. They have. However, organic growth is something that they've done a very good job of because they've gotten UGC, and it's pictures that are kind of cool and fun and different. And so if we're not going to do professional, which again I would recommend, UGC is the next best option. And so just kind of an overview of everything. So we want to focus on invoking emotion, telling a story, getting people to react, entertained. One more example I'll show you guys before I sign off on this section. Red Bull. They do a phenomenal job. Now, let me ask you a question. We see the logo. Okay, great. Where is the drink? Red Bull's a drink, right? I don't see a drink anywhere. No drink to be found. No drink in sight. Red Bull gives you wings, right? Well, yeah, because they're flying. And he's flying down the runway, right? And he's flying, literally. Flying down the, right? And so you don't even notice that, but that is what's happening. I don't see a drink in sight. But guess what? They're not marketing the drink. They're marketing the entertainment and the fact that with Red Bull, it gives you wings and you can fly and you can soar. So what are you going to do? You're going to engage. And the next time you see a Red Bull, subconsciously you're going to buy it. And even if you don't, you're still going to be involved with the brand one way or another, because what are they doing? They're entertaining you, which by virtue of entertaining you is actually invoking an emotion without even realizing it. Entertainment, what do we do when we're excited, we're our eyes are dilated, we're locked in, on one of those stupid reality shows, we're all in, right? Myself included, I'm guilty of that as well. And so that's essentially what Red Bull does a wonderful job of. I want you to study these pages. They do a great job. And when you put content out, go all the way. Don't half-ass it, because it's going to show, and you're not going to put your brand out there in the way that people want to see it. And ultimately, it's going to lead to disappointment. So really focus on that aspect of entertainment and invoking emotion. So anyway, guys, thank you for watching. I'm excited for you to watch the next section, and I will see you later.